Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the next session of our Ask the Expert Fabric Edition series. My name is Anna. I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to review our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, let's start the show.
Thank you, Anna. Hey, Asif.
Hey, Laurent. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Yeah, good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Planning in Microsoft Fabric. Such an exciting meeting today.
Excellent. Why don't we get this kicked off, right? And again, why don't we just start with a quick round of introductions? Asif Kazi here. I'm a principal PM with Microsoft.
And Liran Edelist, Chief Customer Officer with Lumel. And we have a lot to accomplish today, so why wouldn't we just start, right?
Excellent.
So
go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, we want to speak today about Microsoft Fabric and Fabric Plan. And I think if you agree, Asif, let's start just with a bit of an overview. What is that kind of plan concept? What is enterprise planning? I know we have sometimes hundreds of people or thousands of people watching that. So let's start just with a bit of an introduction about what is enterprise planning and why Fabric Plan is there. So, enterprise planning literally allows you to do anything that organization needs to do in terms of planning. The most traditional plan is to speak about financial planning and analysis, the budgeting, the forecast, the workflows that are running around that. That's a traditional plan, but sometimes the planning means that a department manager is getting his actual versus budget report and he needs to do some adjustment or he needs to do commentary. In some cases, it's much bigger than that. It's an enterprise-wide system where you can plan your headcounts connected to your capacity needs of sales or production. Manufacturers using that sometimes for demand planning, inventory planning, sales and operational, how you compare between the demand, the inventory, the needed sales. And we always have to speak in those presentations about AI. So sometimes you already have your agentic capabilities, AI prediction, and people will just want, okay, what the AI is telling me, I want to approve that, I want to adjust or maintain that. So all those different type of stuff, all of them are different types of enterprise planning, and Fabric Plan came to the world in order to support many different needs, from a very simple updates to a super complicated or complex enterprise-wide system.
Yeah, but Laurent, enterprise planning or EPM has existed in the ecosystem for an extended period of time, right? So tell me what's so exciting and how is Microsoft doing this differently for its customers?
Right. So I'm doing enterprise planning for many, many years. And one of the main challenges of this whole area was that we had the BI, the data warehouse, that was always looking at data that is already existing, and we had the planning separated. And until now, the technology wasn't really allowing us to say, well, BI and planning can speak together. So most of the enterprise planning solutions are causing into fragmented type of a data situation, that if you have your ERP or CRM, any type of data management tool, your Power BI or your data warehouse will get that information. But if you want to do planning, now you need to extract the information either directly from those systems into your Excel spreadsheet, or from your operating system or from your data warehouse into a third-party tool, doing the planning there, and then write the data back to another solution. So it means that enterprise planning was kind of a silo instead to be part of your organizational data. Now, of course, if we're speaking about AI readiness, if we speak about one source of truth, if we think about, okay, you spent already so much energy building Power BI and those type of tools, now why would you go into a siloed approach with planning with the most strategic data of the organization? So Fabric Plan is literally coming to say, okay, all the data is under that one umbrella. The whole idea about Fabric to make sure that the data is consistent across the organization comes now into planning as well.
Awesome, that's great.
Yeah, and there are other ways to think about that. If we think about traditional EPM or planning solution process, this is part of a process. You need to get into the organization, you need to do a data requirement session, then you need to create that silo that I presented in the previous slide, and you need to create interfaces between different systems into a planning solution and so on. And Fabric approach is not just saying all the data is in the same place, but it also says, actually, we're building your whole plan data, your whole baseline data from data that is already existing in the semantic layer. So we don't do a data requirement. We say, okay, let's look at the semantic layer that already has the data that should be available for planning and just select what do we need for planning approach. And because we put the technology in place that is connecting, we're adding a layer on top of existing. It's an application. It lives as part of the Fabric area. And that means that you don't need to create any silo. You're not creating even a separate database. So no data integration at all. Everything you're going to see today, and if you're using that Fabric Plan in your organization, you will find that this is not a programming language. It's a modeling tool with a self-service capability, so we don't need to know any secret coding or query languages. And we're living in the data warehouse. We're writing the data back into Fabric SQL. So literally, instead of looking at the process as a siloed process with a lot of interfaces back and forth, we're simplifying that, and Fabric Plan is really modernizing the whole concept of planning, data discovery and semantic layers, modeling very quickly, and then not really programming, and then data entry screens that will be available for planners or for anyone who needs to put commentary together. So that's how we kind of simplifying that in the same data structure.
So you want to just move on to the next slide? Yeah.
Right.
So essentially what I'm hearing you summarize for the audience is that, hey, obviously planning in Fabric IQ, right? Again, it's leveraging all the power and capabilities that Fabric is providing, which is essentially, hey, consolidating all the data into OneLake, right? And then leveraging all the existing investment that's already gone in by large enterprises into the semantic model. And doesn't matter where the data is coming from, right? It could be coming from Snowflake, Databricks, SAP, etc. As long as it's tied to a semantic model, the heart of the Fabric ecosystem anyway is OneLake, and then being able to leverage that to do enterprise planning. And I know you alluded to this a little bit, right? Wherein, hey, people are using Excel sheets, etc. Can you dig a little bit more into that as far as planning today, and how does this change that ecosystem?
Right. So when we built the tool, we were thinking about, well, if we look at traditional way on systems, you need to think about database and user interface and those different components. And we said, let's make it very easy and very simple for everyone. So the user interface should be as easy as you work in Excel. Now, one of the challenges in Excel, it's not a database, so we work with the database, we check that box. But the other piece is that, it doesn't matter how many sheets or how many, Excel capabilities it's always the same spreadsheet. And we decided to do something more innovative in that perspective. And we have 3 types of sheets, in a way, 3 types of planning areas. One of them is the typical planning sheet, and the planning sheet allows you to create your modeling, your driver-based planning, scenarios, forecasting, rolling forecast. I'm showing some of those capabilities in a few moments. So that's one type of a sheet that we have, or one type of a module, if you want to call it like that. And the other one is a power table where you can do your data management. Now, data management goes to many different options. Data management can help you to manage dimension data, and it can even do some planning in many cases, project planning and so on. And in between them is the intelligence, so the ability to create beautiful reports, financial report, daily reports, dashboards, whatever you want, that can consume data from those different planning models. So we have data management tools, so you can manage your data. We have the sophisticated planning capabilities, as well as reporting. So all in one, and you don't need to think about, okay, where is my development studio? Where is my database? Where are my ETLs? It's all in the same place, in a very, what you see is what you get type of an approach. So that's again another type of innovation in the way this whole system is getting architecture.
Excellent. So, I mean, great talking about it. Why don't we let the folks see something in action?
Yes, and I think before I'm showing that, so we wanted to bring a lot of conversation today and a lot of demos. So some pieces are a little bit more pre-made, but what I want to ensure that everything I'm showing here today is actually enabled on your tenant, right? Asif, so anyone who wants to try what I'm doing here, watching the recording later on, you need to do like literally 2 basic steps in order to try it in your own organization?
Yeah, so Fabric Plan has been public preview since FabCon this year, right? And essentially, as long as you get it enabled on your tenant and your capacity, you have the ability to play around with it. And we'd encourage everybody to obviously take a look, use it in your environment, and then provide feedback. Again, why don't we just show folks what it looks like?
Yeah, so guys, no installation, make sure it's available, check that box to enable preview, and you can do exactly what I'm going to do in my demo. So we're going to have a few pieces of the demonstration today. I'm starting with what I'm calling a warm-up, just to understand what are the great capabilities that are coming out of the box that everyone can try and do. I'm going to show you how a report can become a planning report in just a few clicks. So this is my Fabric Plan item. What I did just a few moments before we started, I literally created the new plan items, and I selected my demo semantic model. All the data we're showing you generated by AI, so nothing is a customer or confidential data. So my data was coming from my semantic layer, and I decided to look at the view on my company. My company is selling different type of suites. We have 4 divisions in this company. Every division has some product lines, and below the product line, I have my different customer channels. You can see those are literally the field that I selected for my semantic model. The next piece I was doing, I decided to bring the data just for keep it simple for us today. I decided to bring data only for 2025, 1 year, and I can extend that into the quarters, and for each one of the quarters, I can very easily see the months here. So let's assume I have this data and I just want to create a very basic budget plan. So what I'm going to do, I'm having here my planning tab. I will go into column, again, something that you cannot do in standard reporting tools, and I will create a new empty series, and I will call that my gross revenue budget. Okay, so that will be my new series, and when I'm adding that into my visual, now I'm getting additional columns, and those columns allow me now to do my planning. So I can collapse that to see the full data of 2025, and I see that I have $2.9 billion last year. I want to start 26 budget, let's say, with 3.1 billion. So I'm just hitting 2.1 billion, and the data is instantly cascading down. It will be going down into my product lines, product division, as well as channels. And if I will be expanding into the monthly level, you can see that the cascading is done instantly. Now you can see that because I didn't give any logic for the system for this cascading, it's like equal spread, but I can easily have like those in-cell menus that allow me very quickly to say, well, I really want that to be readjusted by the weight of last year, and you see that instantly the readjustment is there. Now I'm looking at my data here. I really like chocolate, so I think chocolate can do more than 468 million. I really want it to be 500 million, so I can just hit 500 million and make sure that this is getting locked, so no one will be able to change it for me now. That also increases a little bit my overall budget, and I don't want to be maybe trying to push people too much, so I can change it back to 3.1 billion. And once I'm changing it, only the other product line, proportionally are going to change to make sure I can get back into 3.1 million. So that's, again, data entry, bottom up, top down. You can lock cell, you can update cell, and that would be one piece to show. Now, some people are saying, well, can you really do some formula, or can you add some information? Like, I really want to see the differences. Like, people might be changing here, saying that would be only 590 million, and then they go back here and say, dessert is going to increase to 1.4 billion. So that is keep changing, and you really want to see yourself saying that I'm in a situation that I want to see changes between those years and getting them calculated. We can easily also insert a calculated column, and a calculated column could be my variance in that specific case. And I will say that I really want to see my gross revenue budget minus my, and you see, you don't need to do a lot of kind of complicated. It's very easy. We have, by the way, a bunch of formulas here. I'll speak about them a bit later, but I can create now my variance column. And again, this variance column will be living for every quarter whenever we do like that time. So that variance column is getting updated, and whenever data, excuse me, is changing, we can very easily see that variance will be changing as well. If you want variance to play very nice, I did 1.2, let's change it back to 1.2 billion. So if I want variance to be like in a more conditional formatting way, we have a bunch of options with beautiful conditional formatting. I like the data bars, so we can decide that we also do the data bars, and I can add my own rules around that, where it applies. And this is pretty cool, very quick design for the tool. So calculation, data entry, we can do more than that, and I will show that later on. Now, people say, well, I really want to communicate to people about that 500K, that it was a management decision. I want to add some commenting here. That's fine. The planning screen allows you to create many different types of data entry columns. One of them could be just a text where you can put your notes, and you can decide that notes could be coming for every month, or it could be only one per row. I will create now a notes column, and I will say that management put 500 million goal, right? So now I can have that sort of information connected to my data. It's even more than that, because when I'm analyzing the data and I really need someone to give me answer, or I want to say to someone, well, I really think we can sell more of those chocolate bars, I can actually create a comment. And in the comment, I can tag someone in my organization, and I can ask him to update the goal. And when I'm doing that, this is going, because we're now integrated, it's part of the Microsoft ecosystem. Now, this person will get a Teams notification that he needs to get into this report and make an update to the information. So assuming he was making the update, the next question would be, okay, but I really want to approve that. I really want to make sure he was doing that. That's also part of the options. We can do that as well. I can go into my column option, and I can add one of those single select, and I can say, let's have an approval comment. And I will just use something that is one of our presets. We can support a much more sophisticated type of approval processes with different level of approval and locking mechanism. But literally now, the person that made the change, he can say, I submitted that. I can get again notification for that, and I can go back here and says, I really want to approve that. And actually, this whole business line looks good, so I want to approve it for all the chocolate bar.
Yeah.
So we spent about 5 minutes, and this is, again, that's only the simple planning piece, but you can do data entry, you can make adjustment, you can make calculation, conditional formatting, approval workflow, and this is only the start, right? This is only the warm-up.
And Laran, that's great, right? To give people a feeler of what the product looks like, right? But here's the number one question that almost every customer asks us when we do the demo. All this is great, but how do I know who did what when?
How, excuse me? Yes. So you want to say, like, who is making those data entries, and yes, how can you use the data, right? So everything that is done here is being done under a strict audit log. You can see that there is an audit log here, and the audit log is showing me both the data entry changes that were made in the system, as well as any changes that we were doing in the report. So audit log is always available for any type of a change, any type of a data that is existing. That's number one. The second piece around that is even more nice, because I mentioned that we're sitting on top of the data warehouse. So literally what we will be doing, and every one of those, this is, by the way, a template, right? So this template is not for a single user. It's designed to have hundreds of users working on that, different people with their own quotas or planning or something like that. But you want literally that the data will be captured back in your semantic layer. So we have this writeback option. And in the writeback option, you can quickly add a destination. I will show the setting. You will set the destination in your database. You decide what format needs to go into your database. So that's, again, very neat and quick. You can do a long format where you can see measures in rows, or you can do a wide format where measures are going to be in the column. And you can make sure that you even write the data back to the database with those changes. So all the data that we are creating here is going back to your database and can get connected back to your semantic layer. And I will show later on, if I'm writing this data back to the database, how I can reuse it maybe for my rolling forecast as an example, right?
Awesome.
So everything is audited, everything is getting written back to the database, and we forgot to say that it also supporting the row level security that hopefully most organizations already applied in their semantic model to make sure you get the right permissions for the different people.
Excellent. So again, this seems like simplistic stuff, right? I mean, but again, then where's all the complicated stuff which all the enterprises needs, right? Workflows, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me more.
Amazing. So this is where I'm kind of saying planning is an art. Maybe a little bit different than traditional accounting, where you have rules and you can be creative sometimes with accounting as well. But planning is really art, because every area, every organization has their own flavors, how they do their planning, how they set targets. Is it going to be top down? Is it bottom up? Maybe a combination of that. People, different divisions have their different scenarios, management that are coming with goals. They want to say, well, I want to look at different types like that. And then we have also the business driver and the calculation and driver-based modeling, and definitely integrated planning. How do I take my revenue planning and calculate the cost of goods sold out of that, and profitability, and how many resources I need to do that. So all those type of stuff, this is what I'm calling the art of planning. We can spend hours and hours and hours to speak about that. So I want to pick just kind of the highlights that are common to most of the organization. And one of those common denominator is the concept of rolling forecast. So usually when we do budget, we do the budget like I demonstrated for a full 12 months, and that's in a way the easy exercise, right? But every month I want to check my data. I want to see my prediction going forward, and I want to try and understand, okay, so how my prediction is in compared to my budget based on the historical data that is already coming and what I'm feeling. So rolling forecast is a very core capabilities, and usually every month, additional months is adding, and you just kind of upgrading that. So let me go here into, I just created over here another forecast screen, and what I preset here, I picked up my gross revenue budget. After the writeback, I'm recollecting the data back to my semantic layer, and I have my budget, and my budget is going for 12 months. Let's open the 2026 information. So you can see that I have for each and every quarter the budget that we prepared earlier. But from an actual perspective, this is the gross revenue actual, I have only 2 months of actual. So literally I have 12 months of budget, 2 months of actual, and what I really want to do is to create that sort of an hybrid option. I want to say, let me do my rolling forecast while I'm taking 10 months of budget and 2 months of actual. In many tools, it sounds very easy, but it's not. We made it super simple for every user to do that. So I want to create my forecast version, and my forecast version is going to start at the months of March till the months of December. Okay, so I'm starting with that. For the close period, I really want to see my gross revenue, but for the open period, what I want to say, it will be a data input, but I want to default it into my gross revenue budget. So literally, once we create that, it will take a few seconds. You see everything is working pretty quick here on Fabric Plan. Now you can see that in my screen, I have three measures. I have my gross revenue budget. I have my gross revenue actual. This is the first column here, and the last one is forecast. Now you can see as an example, the months of March, I have forecast that is equal to my budget. And on February, my forecast is equal to actual. So literally with like a few seconds, I was able to say, now I can easily compare my gross revenue actual with my budget, but also I can compare my budget with my forecasted version. Now that also means that I can do some other stuff here. Let's just make it easy for us. I know that people are using sometimes small screens and it's a presentation. So I'm going into my planning tab here, and I'm going to use my show column. Let's keep a focus only on my forecast. I will just remove the other measures from now. So now I have my forecast. So you can see it's very clearly that the forecast is locked for historical value, and it's open for future value, and I can do the same data entry here. Now, some managers will say, well, okay, I defaulted that to budget, but I really want to use something more modern, maybe statistical forecast for my forecasting, and maybe even comparing my statistical forecast with my budget plan or whatever users are doing. So let's do the following. I'm going to go into my modeling tab, and I will add another type of forecast. We will call that statistical forecast. It will be the same going from the months of March till the months of December. We will just quickly create that. And now what we are having in our statistical forecast is that this open period is blank. And I will use another great feature here. That's our prediction. And in my prediction, I'm using historical data. And I can use either a multi-seasonality or a single seasonality type of a forecasting way. Can decide what confidence level I want to gather. I can even add some gross percentage into that because I'm spending more on marketing and sales, and I can run forecast. Now I can run this forecast either as a top-down exercise, or I can run it as a bottom-up, just to show you the differences of the ideas that if I will go into a single line of business, like the chocolate line of business, and run the prediction over there, you can see that the seasonality is different. So I'm not going to do it for each and every row. If I want the bottom-up seasonality, I'll just go here. I will select that I need a bottom-up seasonality, run the forecast, save it. And now literally I have my statistical forecast as well. So I can see that information, and now I have two types of forecast. I can look at my statistical forecast and my regular forecast. The next question that people are saying, they say, well, you know, I trust the statistical forecast, but potentially I really want to simulate, or maybe want to see a different type of scenario with my statistical forecast. All of those options are also available. And if you check my modeling tab here, we have a scenario option. I can create another scenario. I don't need to take all the measures necessarily here. I can really use only my forecast and statistical forecast for simulations if I want to. Because we are positive, let's do the best case scenario. I can just give it a name. And now what was happening is that the system duplicated from base to best case. So now I have two scenarios. And now I can go here and say, well, you know, let's maybe increase that. Let's open this and go into my Q2 and say, I'm really going to rock it in Q2. And I want to change this number. And you can see you can also type a number, but we also have this kind of a gauge. And I can say, well, maybe that is going to decrease a little bit, but those guys are still going to increase. And I can collapse that and go back maybe into our healthy suite. We know people like healthy product. So we're going to increase our healthy product scenario as well. So you can play with that as well. And you can do a simulation where you always get here to decide the percent change of that. In case we're doing something that is more sophisticated than that, in case we actually want to say, well, I do a driver-based planning with a lot of rules and calculation, We actually have another view for that. This is I call it our iconic view style, where I can say, okay, my baseline will be the statistical forecast, and I will compare that to my regular forecast. And this is kind of a tree view that allows you both to simulate directly on the tree, as well as seeing, what is the simulation impact. And you can check each one of them. There will be like charts associated with them. So a lot of capabilities are getting unlocked. You can check the dependencies, the details, and so on. Unfortunately, again, it's a short presentation, so I don't want to take everything on visualization, but there are a bunch of options available here.
Hey, Laurent?
Yes.
So great demo so far, right? Love the visualizations, love the use of the semantic layer, etc. Right? But again, folks come back all the time. Okay, what are your cube capabilities as far as the platform is concerned? You want to address that as an SME on the domain side in planning?
So in terms of the planning capabilities, you're literally kind of unlimited. And what I'm talking about is that everything we're doing here is connected. So if this is my revenue planning and I need to connect it to other different type of the system, those are connected. If I want to create more sophisticated formulas, and that's a question that is coming all the time, like can I do driver-based modeling and so on, we do have those capabilities. I can just show something very interesting, like, how can you calculate based on your revenue forecast, how you can create profitability and projection and those type of stuff. If we have time, I'm happy to show it a bit later on, but the main capacities that we're talking here is the ability to enter data, to have business logic, and I will show a few business logic soon, but also cascading options. So in a way, what happens in this type of modeling, this is a top-down view of the of my forecast. I might want to have people doing, let's say, a bottom-up exercise, and in the bottom-up exercise, I might even want them to do a sort of a cascading into a lower level of detail. We can even support that piece. And whenever I'm creating a forecast, I can now create maybe a third type of a forecast for my top-down planning. So I can create another forecast, and that would be my bottom-up one. And I can say that my bottom-up might be defaulted to my budget if I really want to. So I can do that as well. But what I can add here, I can add a breakdown. And this breakdown allows me to decide that I'm taking extra dimensions that are not existing here and just allowing maybe drill down into a country level. And I can go here and say, okay, now I want to do maybe a breakdown in my product dimension, not just to the product line, but also to another level of details that is going maybe into my product family. So there are different types of breakdowns you can do. And literally, once we're doing those, it's very easy for us to create that sort of a breakdown. And the system is creating now behind the scene a cube that is cascading all the information and allow the field to do their own bottom-up. So we can do top-down, bottom-up with a cube view as well. And the cube is now being generated in the background and will be appearing in a few seconds for that use case. From a calculation perspective, and that's again part of the needs, is connected planning, cascading, as well as calculation. I was able to show a very simple type of calculation. You just do variance, and I can do some other type of them. We have customers that have dozens of different calculations in order to, let's say, calculate maybe inventory and rolling forecast and stuff like that. So we can support vast amount of measures and calculation. And we also have the ability to do a no-code business modeling experience, which allows you to do like a row level calculation and for more like driver-based modeling when you have leverage and so on. So the capabilities are not just, okay, just Excel. It's something much more sophisticated than that. It's a system that can scale from a very basic data entry to enterprise solution with a lot of business logic and connected data between those modules.
That's great, Laurent. It was very powerful.
And I think the next question that we being asked is that, okay, what is this power table, right? That's that's another question that is coming in. Why do we have those 3 different types of planning modules in a way in one place? So should we speak about Power Table a little bit?
Yeah. So let's talk about that a bit, right? I mean, obviously we've got planning as an item, and again, as you mentioned, there are 3 separate capabilities in there, right? And again, the question that comes about a lot of times is that, hey, why these 3 items, and then how do they cohesively work together, right, to add value? And some of this we alluded to earlier around, right? I mean, folks are used to using Excel sheets, right? Again, clients that we've spoken to, and we've got tremendous amount of interest since we've launched, right? We're talking to Fortune 10, Fortune 500 companies at this point in time who are interested in leveraging Fabric Plan, right? A lot of the companies that you speak to will say, hey, we've been doing this in Excel sheet for the past 10 years, right? And that's essentially what it is. So tell me how Power Table and intelligence is meant to essentially augment that tradition that they have, and how it provides more power, auditability, and centralization of data, right? Would love to hear from you and even see some of it in action.
Right. So I think the main rule in order to have a successful planning solution is to have it as a multi-tool, right? Because we want to adjust it to so many different use cases. And one of the reasons people are using those Excel spreadsheets or sometimes the third-party type of planning tools is because they really want to own their data. Like they have their own way to aggregate product into different hierarchies. They really want to say, well, I am planning for products that may not be existing right now in my system. So I need to add new products. I want to look at my list of employees, but not only those who are currently being hired, but also the one that I'm planning to hire next year. So there are many different types that people want to do this type of data management tool. And we can expand it, by the way, into places that you really want to allow people to, business users to manage data even in the data warehouse. So we decided that we need to have a tool that has direct access to table in the database and allowing user to do what we call a reference data management. And this is literally maintaining data that should be like an organizational data and available either for planning or reporting or other use cases. So we want this Power Table to allow you to manage tables in the database. Sometimes you want to make sure that you are tracking some information over there. We can actually do even a project management tool over there. You can use data to collect information, and very, very common is that you want to understand from your different managers how many people they need to hire, as an example. So you want to use something for data management tool, and you want to make sure, because you're changing data that is literally residing in your database, you want to make sure that there are like approval flows over there, and it's all kind of connected to the different automation of database. So this Power Table has different use cases, but it's a very strong tool to manage data that is not necessarily the typical planning data with the version and the rolling forecast, because it's a more core data that you want to have users to manage, but you want it not to be on a spreadsheet. You don't want to have now Power Apps automation that you need to configure. You want something that gets easy to the end user. So let me show you how this Power Table is look like, and I'm going to show 3 different use cases. So this is one use case that I connected to my customer dimension. Okay, so this is my customer dimension, and for each and every customer I have some information. Let's say I'm in finance, and the customer, I want to change those payment terms because the customer was really asking me, hey, we want to move. So in some cases, I will just go back to the CRM or my billing system and make sure that I'm updating there. But sometimes I really want to know what are the payment terms here for my planning purposes or stuff like that. So I can go here and change it, but this is not like a nice way to type in the information. So one of the capabilities here in Power Table is that I can make sure that I can edit a field, and I can make this field as a single select, as an example. And I can use list of values that is another table or distinct value. And now, I can edit that for the end user. So whenever they need to change like payment terms, they can do that very easily. And now, you go here and you see, okay, what are the terms that are available, and you can make this change here. Another example, is it a key count? Yes or no? This is something important for planning, because sometimes for key count, you assign different sales managers and so on. So going here into edit mode, I will change this one into a single select. I'm sorry, to a checkbox. And in the checkbox, I will say whenever it checked, I want it yes. Whenever it unchecked, I want the system to write no. I'm saving that so I can very easily take a table that is kind of look ugly and require manual check and auditing and just create a very nice user interface and audit it, right? So now no one can put a payment term that I'm not accepting. The other piece of that is that I don't need to give access to all of this table to everyone. So going into our setup here, you will see that I can literally manage access. And I can decide in the manage access who can add new rows. Like, can I allow people to add new customers? Can I have different column access? So maybe I don't want anyone to change the customer IDs as an example, right? So those type of access you can set up here as well. And not less important than that, because again, we're changing reference data that might be affecting our reporting and stuff like that. I can go back into my Power Table and decide that I'm actually creating out of the box approval. Before I'm setting the approval, I want to show the users here that the difference. So when I'm making the changes here, you can see that those changes are being kind of counted, and I can hit here the save to database in order to instantly change that in the database. But if I'm going and I can see what are the changes and I can discard them if I want to. If I want to add the approval, it's going to be a different process. Let's just allow that multi-level approval. I will put myself as approval to make it quick for us in this session, and I will just save that. And now once we have the approval flow in place, I cannot save it to the database, but I can submit it for a review. And now when I submit for a review, I will put a reason, and I will put a due date. This is very urgent, so I will need it for tomorrow. I want it as a priority, and I'm submitting that. And now I submitted that. Also, it's create like a Teams notification, and you can see that I cannot save it, but because I did the approval for myself, I can see that there are some pending items for approval. I can review that. I can say, well, I'm approving that automatically. I want to see the details, and I maybe want to reject them, or I want to approve all of those changes or request changes and so on. So all those changes are recorded here, and I can decide whether to approve and save to the database or not. There are a bunch of other options here. So you can do bulk updates, copy and replace. You can import data directly from Excel. So if you are getting some information from supplier or from some users that's really insistent on loading Excel file, this is a tool that can literally allow people to load the data there, and we can group by the information. If I want it to be organized in a nicer way, like I can maybe want to do it by the region, by the area, and I can add another subgroup here of the country. So a lot of stuff is available here to make sure that users can maintain data in a governance way, with an audit log, with approval, and based on the permission that I was kind of giving them. I mentioned that there are many use cases for that. So again, another use case, I will just discard those changes. Another interesting use case for that is like employee management. You want to do your HR planning. You want to start with a list of employees that are existing in your organization. You can get connected into an employee table and just make sure that you add or existing employees to the organization if needed. We'll give it a few more seconds. It's big employee tables. Yep. So you see those are my employees, and if I want to manage the new salaries and updates like that, not necessarily in that type of planning grid, I can do that here. It's part of the semantic layer. I can then split it by months, allocate it that, and do other stuff. And last but not least, it's very interesting that I can use actually Power Table, not just for existing table, but I can literally load data directly from Excel to my Fabric database, and then stop managing data in Excel and using this beautiful tool to manage the data in the database with governance, with the ability to see everything connected. So I'm just selecting a database to upload my file there. I will connect to this database. I will say that I don't want to connect to existing table. I want a new table here. We'll call that Reactor demo. So that would be my table name. I will upload a CSV file or Excel file, doesn't matter. And you see now I'm just picking an Excel file, CSV file. I do next. Now it gives me some options to manage data. Very typical problem when we load those data is that we want to change maybe some formats, like into a date format. So I can do that very quickly here. This is my actual start, my actual end date. I can change this one also to a date, my planned date and start. So now literally while talking, and again, this is all live demo, right? So it's not recorded, nothing is there like that. And you can see that I was able to take an Excel file, connect it to my database, and now this data is in my Fabric SQL. Now I can change, this is a Gantt chart, I can change the information here, but we actually added some cool capabilities that I can even make it look like a Gantt chart, because we built it also for project management, and we will have in the future other capabilities. So I can say, okay, here is my planned start, here is my planned end. I have like an estimated effort, so the duration. I have my parent ID to make sure that we have name and dependencies, and I can see this is my actual duration from a progress perspective, and there are dependencies existing, and I can just save it. And now this whole data entry piece is now actually even being shown as a Gantt chart that I can review the progress based on plan and so on. So this is such a great tool to manage data, manage project, manage dimensions, employee, and be a part of the planning ecosystem where we say, do the data where data resides.
Awesome. We've got about, when we talk about the intelligence capabilities or the visualization capabilities as far as the product are concerned and how all of it ties together, right? You just saw a power table wherein, hey, you can have a curated data management experience and be able to manage how the data is entered, manage, validated. You can obviously control access over there, right, via RLS and other permissions that we provide on the power table side. And curate that experience. Let's just talk about intelligence a bit, and then we can talk about how all three fit together.
Right. So I'll do intelligence very, very quickly, because again, it's like such a wide topic. Then I'll touch point just on a few capabilities of intelligence, but that would be a good time also to start writing your question. We will try to follow up. So I will do like 3-4 minutes intelligence, and we'll try to answer questions as much as we can. So let's get back into the initial planning screen that I have here. I created, again, just a few moments before that, an intelligence sheet. The idea is that we have 3 types of sheet. One is the planning sheet, the other one is the power table sheet, and that's the intelligence sheet. The intelligence sheet, think about that as our reporting dashboard. So we have over 100 different types of chart here, that including waterfall chart and very advanced type of dynamic visualization. Here is an example where I'm looking at my budget compared with actual, and this type of a chart allow me even to drill down, like let's say from an annual level into a monthly level, and that type of information. One other capabilities of this chart is literally to be able and embed my planning pieces all together. So I can go here into and add my planning sheet that we created together. Let's say I can take my forecast sheet here. Okay, so you will be able to see that now I have my forecast, and that allows me also to do the data entry in the same place and to create a beautiful chart. Something that I really like, by the way, in those charts, we have what is called a small multiplier. So I can go here and say, I really don't just want to see 4 quarters. I want to say, see it by division. So I can add division, and then, I will get the multiplier of this chart for each one of my divisions. I can add even into this one my power table information. So I can add my division parameter here. And make sure that I can see everything together. I can see. Sometimes we're doing it too quickly, and just need to be fitting that into the right size. So everything that we are doing here is literally allowing us to build a very nice dashboard that I can just drag into the right place, and literally being able to show everything together in one place and getting the information that we need in a nice and modern way. There are literally, as I mentioned, unlimited opportunities here. You can add selection options. You can change the bar type. You can create bookmarks, so different people can have different filters, and that's literally just to finalize everything in one place. Also super important, again, we will not have time to show that you can create financial reports here very nicely, like in all the indentation that is needed and different formulas and so on. So everything that is needed from a reporting, dynamic calculation is there. You can change parameter and see how it's affect the visual. Everything is existing there. So that is kind of like the final component. You take data from semantic model, you have planning, you have data management tools, and then you can create everything together in a P&L view, in simulation view, and in immersive type of reporting dashboards. So to kind of finalize that, it's difficult in 1 hour to explain, to show, and demonstrate, but I can assure you that we have hundreds of features, kid you not, top-down planning, bottom-up, rolling forecast, driver-based, scenario management, strategic plans, strategic view, self-service capabilities, ad hoc capability to build, reports from scratch, integration capability, all connected to your database, workflow, reporting, and definitely everything is under strict governance, and everything is being done on your own Fabric tenant. Nothing is going to external cloud, so data is protected in your Fabric tenant. So that's kind of quick summary.
Excellent. So I know that we've released it for public preview. Folks have been asking, hey, can you tell me a bit more about pricing? Can you tell me a bit more about pricing? Why don't we just quickly cover, I know we've got about 8 minutes left, right? Let's go through what roles and what the pricing looks like as far as planning is concerned.
Yes, absolutely. So we have 4 concepts around pricing, right?
Yeah, the 4 concepts around pricing, right? So again, like we said, discussed, Laurent, right? This has existed for planning has existed in the ecosystem for an extended period of time, right? Microsoft announced getting into via Microsoft Plan, right? So what is so special about how we are priced versus the competition? Can you just talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so the first piece is that most vendors, EPM vendors out there, asking you to do a commitment of how many users you need, at least for 1 year, if not for 3 or 5 years type of commitment. There is no commitment here. That's number one. It means that you pay only based on usage. The way we count usage is that we said if a user is logging into the system, we keep him as a user only for 1 month. So that's kind of a short commitment. It means that if you do an ad hoc planning, if you have seasonal users that are planning once a year, it's all good. If you already have MAC commitment with Microsoft and you have a committed amount of consumptions unit is there, you can use that, but it's literally based, you pay only on what you use, and there is no pre-commitment for that. The other piece is that not all users are the same. So if I create a dashboard and only managers wants to see that, they will be considered as viewers. And again, if they log into the system only once a year, they will calculate only once as, for that specific month. If they're doing that every month, they will be charged at the end of the month for their consumption. So we have 3 types of user. One is the viewer. The other one is a stakeholder that is put some data and is creating some commenting information. So stakeholder is literally a data entry user. And a planner is let's call it the super user, right? The one who is literally create report, can moderate forecasting, close period, open period. So a lot of customization and let's say like a system admin work. This is the planner. So the planner is literally like the most kind of capable user. Not all users are planner in most cases. Stakeholder is a data entry interviewer. So those are like the 3 types of users, and it's all based on consumption. If you have consumptions.
Yeah, let me just quickly talk to this a bit, right? So again, firstly, just to add on to what Laurent said, right? The 3 different roles, right? And again, it's only by use, right? And remember that planning is seasonal. That doesn't mean that you've got to be planner all 12 months of the year, right? You could just be a viewer, and that just saves you a lot of money, right? Just based on a typical subscription that you'd end up paying. So it's again pay-per-use. And the way we're billing it is the same thing as you bill all our other workloads. It's based on capacity units, right? So this will burn down capacity units, right, that has been assigned to your workspace. And again, there's nothing special to do here, no special agreement to sign, no special license to get, right? Just like you create a Power BI report, you create a Spark notebook, or you create anything else, you can create a planning item and get working with it. Again, it's price based on value. So the viewer by far is the least expensive and the planner is the most expensive. And just for a representative standpoint, we've demonstrated not just the CU per hour cost, but on a monthly 30-day session, how are the credit units going to get burned down. Just from a calculation of putting some estimated buffer standpoint, from a calculation standpoint, we are saying, hey, put a 30% buffer on additional usage, whether that's consumption of your Fabric SQL, OneLake, Power BI, XML API. And once you add all of this, you'll get your monthly consumption. And you can take these CUs, and depending upon the rate that you're paying for a CU, again, you could be on an RI, you could have your special enterprise discount, etc. You can do that and figure out and estimate what your total cost of ownership is, right? So very flexible, very cheap, and at the same time, it's in line with how your capacity units are consumed today.
Right. So there are different ways of saving you. Number one, you don't do any integration work. You're reusing, all the energy you already spent to build your database and your semantic layers. Number two, you pay only on what you use. And number three, if you have capacity units that are already there, that's fine. Eventually, it's going to be much cheaper than any other options in the market. I can assure that as well. And then I think if it's okay, I know that we don't have a lot of time, but our key takeaway is just, guys, try that, and you can reach out to us if you have questions, LinkedIn or emails. But you can start it just now, and you can try everything I showed. I can assure you it should be working for your tenant as well. I want to use maybe the last 2 minutes just to kind of answer some of the question I was able to see. So there was a question, once we do the approval comment, can we lock the data? Of course, I just didn't have the time to show it, but you can definitely do on any data entry column, you have the option to say it's locked when it's approved, and you can even configure the type of data that is allowed to be entered under specific ranges. So we do that. It's just another step of configuration that we didn't have time to show. Happy to show it maybe on another presentation here. We still have 2 or 3 minutes left. So if you have other questions, that would be a good time to post them. If we missed your questions, you can post them again. It's fine.
Hey, Laurent, the next one was, hey, in addition to RLS, right, does Power Table allow grant additional granular control over even RLS?
Yes, absolutely. The very basic one is that if we're talking about planning screen as an example, on top of the RLS, every measure, like every new row or column that we're adding, has its own permission. So the idea is that RLS will give the user the data he needs to see. And on top of that, we have another permission for each and every column over there. And you can actually make it even more sophisticated. If you have certain users that can see data and not enter, you can even create that sort of information. You can do it directly in the application, and you can do it integrated if you have this data managed either in Power Table or already in your semantic layer. So you can add the extra layers of security on top of that. It's very well needed, especially even for approval. You don't want people that approving to be the same people that are doing the data entry. So you can create that sort of a separation between the different groups of people.
Awesome. I think we've addressed all the other questions thus far, but if there's anybody with a question, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yes, and I think we also write in time, so that means that we're good in planning, right?
Perfect. Okay, again, just quick call to action, guys. Obviously, few things I'll recap, right? I know that folks have been asking about US East 2 and a few other regions. That's something that we're working on, right? Again, if you are a managed account, I would encourage your account team to raise a UAT. That only helps us to move things along further. Again, planning is in public preview at this point in time, should be getting to GA pretty soon, right? Again, we are available here as a resource. I've put my email address over there. And again, don't hesitate to reach out, and then we can we can help. I mean, if you need a separate session, need additional guidance, happy to point you to the right resources. GA should be coming soon, right? I can't officially give you the date yet. I'll say coming soon.
Yeah, the plan for GA, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And maybe something quickly, I didn't mention that, very similar to Power BI, there are two modes, editing mode and reading mode. Once we change to the editing mode, this is how user will be able to see the data, and it's still going to allowing them to do the data entry in the reading mode, but they will not be able to change the report. So that's the reading mode, very similar to what you kind of use from Power BI. What you see is what you get. So thank you again. Appreciate everyone who joined here. Feel free to reach out to us, as Asif mentioned, and it was a pleasure being here. Thank you, Asif.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time. Thank you, Laurent, for your time.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.